All right, let's chat more about this then. Faith Mabusela is the National Chairperson of Put South Africa First and she joins us in studio. Very good evening to you. Thanks so very much for coming to join us here in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's start then with today's march, today's protest. What do you believe to have achieved? Interestingly, it seems you had a lot of support. I mean, it was quite intriguing to see that even Santako came out to support you. So talk to us also about, some of the support that you received as the organisers.
As the organisers, we really did get a lot of support from the citizens of South Africa, and the initiative was a mutual idea that comes from South Africans as well. We were just amplifying what South Africans were saying to us and saying there's a drug scourge in South Africa. And today, the plan was to go and address this as citizens of the country, to say enough, we are tired of drugs in South Africa, we need a government intervention. Unfortunately, it did not turn out as planned because it ended up looking like it was one organization's show. So the message was there in between it, but it was not in a way that we wanted it. We wanted it to be impactful and direct, but the focus now shifted from the drug scourge and the drug abuse to a certain organization.
What do you mean by that? Do you feel that it wasn't, in fact, as impactful as it should have been? Maybe I just don't know the politics of what you're alluding to there.
Okay, the support was there. People came out, but we were expecting more people. For some unforeseen reason, some people couldn't come through that we had mobilized. And the march, like I said, was for the citizens, but it ended up being the Kolane Foundation march. It took away from the cause. So the focus was mainly around the foundation more than what we initially wanted as Put South African First, to say, we have a crisis in our country and we need to unite and address this in one voice and say we want a drug-free South Africa.
And how do you feel these sort of marches help, in addressing the drug problem?
Listen, we need an awareness and government needs to intervene. And this is the only way we can do by marching and addressing this and handing over memorandum to make our government notice that there is an outcry. People are tired, people are suffering, families are being destroyed, lives are being destroyed. The scourge of drugs has an influence in many sectors. Crime, homes are being disassembled because of this. And you find in every corner of this country, you find kids in the streets. That shows there's a problem in the country. We cannot have young people all under drugs who are drug addicts, because that means South Africa does not have a future when all its youth is affected by drugs.
What is your view on the police's role and how they handle crimes related to drugs? Some might even say that they in fact are a huge part of the problem. In the clip that we played, we heard someone talking about problems pertaining to staff shortages, but I think I want to focus more on what some people are saying, that police protect drug dealers and drug peddlers, in different communities, and that's primarily the reason why we can never end this drug problem.
Absolutely. We've seen this in the communities. We will see police officers in full uniform using state cars going and delivering drugs and collecting brown envelopes. So we have a law enforcement crisis as well, because even when people go and report these cases and report the drug dealers, the same police officers are the one then go and notify these people that so and so has come to report you for this. So they're not really doing their job. They're compromising the society, the sovereignty of this country. We feel not safe with our SAPS as citizens.
And I mean, that's probably going to be something that stops people from wanting to report crimes, knowing that if you are some sort of a whistleblower, that it's likely that even the police themselves might be the ones alerting the police, and nobody wants to lose their lives.
Absolutely, because we know that if you want to be a police officer, you take an oath to serve and to protect. So if we can no longer go to the police stations and report crimes because we are afraid that they're going to notify those drug dealers about us coming and reporting them, then where do we go as communities?
Yeah, it seems that there's also, this fear, and now you're talking about a collaboration too, when it comes to, drug lords and authorities. And, a lot of the time when we do see these drug busts, we see arrests of what some might call the foot soldiers, of the bigger guys, of the drug lords. So, what's to be done if we're unwilling or unable to address the root cause of the issue? I mean, a lot of the time I believe that, some of these guys that sell the drugs on the streets are the young guys. So if they get arrested, the drug lords just, they can just recruit, and they start them quite young, I understand. So if we're not prepared to deal with the root, cause of the problem, how do we plan to address, the issue in totality?
Absolutely, we need to address the roots, and the roots is hunger and unemployment. Most people, we know that we have the highest unemployment rate in the country. So it becomes something that people go into not willingly, but for survival. So in order for us to eradicate this, we need to also start looking into the unemployment of South Africans.
So you believe the drug lords target those who would have been vulnerable in our society. These communities where we find high drug problems, let's talk about some of the issues that are dealt with there. You mentioned the issue of unemployment and the fact that young people really just don't have anything to look forward to. But let's paint a scenario of what really we see in those kinds of communities. I mean, we've seen some of the representatives of those communities talking to us about what happens in these sort of communities where we see a lot of drugs.
You know what they say about idle minds? When you have nothing to do, then anything attracts you that comes in your way. So young people are exposed to a lot. They see these drug dealers succeeding in life, living glamorous lives, and they also want the same. So it becomes an attraction to them that, hang on, since there's nothing that I'm doing, maybe this is a path that I might take so that I may one day also be living this luxurious life like the drug dealers.
All right, and going forward, what are your plans? I know that, you said earlier that you didn't get exactly what you wanted out of today's march, so I'm assuming, you have other plans and things that you want to do to highlight the issues pertaining to drug abuse.
Yes, there are plans, but first of all, we need to also deal with certain issues of sexism in this aspect, because as women, I believe we are most affected because we are mothers, we're sisters, and we aunts of these people that we see that are affected. Yeah. But when you're addressing such issues and you find men being intimidated by your presence in addressing a national crisis, it becomes a problem, which is something I experienced today. Hence, we had this march, we wanted women to lead it, but it was snatched from our hands to amplify somebody else's foundation, which we feel it's very sexist. At one point, some of us were pushed out of the podium from addressing a national crisis. So maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and address this other issue of feminism in the country and sexism as well, because we cannot be out there trying to solve an issue and there be people who are trying to suppress us as women.
All right, Faith, thanks very much for giving us your time. Faith Mabusela is the National Chairperson of Put South Africa First.